as speaker here is Taha Kehar, the writer of Typically Tanya and of Rift and Rivalry, 2 books. And he has joined us here. He's come from Karachi. And we're going to speak about the feminist dimensions of our books. To begin with, I'm going to ask questions to Taha. The first one being, Taha, you have written 2 books, and both of them reflect female characterology. You have made women your protagonists. So is it a conscious decision to write books with female protagonists, or is it something that you have developed as a natural style?
I think when it comes down to writing any character, the gender is not revealed to me right at the beginning. I think it boils down to what the character says. Like with Typically Tanya, the first thing this character said to me, which resonated with me, I say said to me like it's some kind of revelation, but actually it's just how she sprung up in my mind. She said she was mistrustful of the Kareem chauffeur who was coming to pick her up. And I followed that idea through. I didn't know if the character was male or female. However, it emerged as a female simply because as I explored it, I realized this is a woman. Similarly with male characters as well, I prefer taking it from what they say. And I try to avoid the stereotypical dimensions of that. I try to be comfortable with the strength of a character. And then maybe I guess it's not conscious in that sense. Is it conscious for you?
Well, to me, it's natural because my interest lies in creating characters or creating a fictional people out of imagination, observation, and reading. So, like being a woman, it's different for me. For you, it's surprising, you know.
I guess with you, it's also different because my protagonist comes from the more privileged set of society. So I can obviously just focus on that one dimension.
Okay.
You, on the other hand, have characters who are from various social classes, and they engage with a patriarchal society in different ways and at different levels. So do you think it was easy for you to do that?
Well,
as you wrote the book, that is.
Your writing part, I think that comes naturally. But before writing, the research part is something that took some time. Mm-hmm. That is the part that I had to work on. There was some fact-finding because the stories, they are set in different cities, different locations, like I've said before, Balochistan or Waziristan or the urban cities as well. Since not all these places are places which I have visited, so maybe I had to do a lot of fact-finding, a lot of research. And then there was this emotional bonding which I had to create with the characters, since they are also from different socio-cultural classes, as you've already mentioned. So yeah, writing comes naturally, but then the fact-finding part, it was a little hard. Which also brings me to the question that, is it important for you as a writer to create contrasting characters of women in one story or one book to maybe balance the authoritativeness of one?
So, the protagonist of my novel, Typically Tanya, has been described as this fiery, firebrand, strong protagonist. It wasn't intentional, it just happened. But I do understand that not everyone is like that. Not every man or woman is strong. Not everyone engages with reality in the same way. Mm. But I guess it's important to show different nuances, different types of people.
Absolutely.
Because and it also maybe depends on age, because a protagonist like Tanya, who is 20 something, okay, she will be a little bit more impulsive. She will be and maybe with age you're not that
mature,
way.
Yeah.
But even then, I think it has something to do with social class as well, because she comes from the privileged set of society and therefore is insulated from so many things that happen around her. So she, by dint of not having experienced some form of adversity, has the confidence to say what she wants to.
Okay.
And in my previous work also, I've tried to focus on protagonists who have presented, I wouldn't say weak.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call them weak protagonists, but they're not as fiery as Tanya. But it boils down to the fact that to present reality, you have to present a whole spectrum of experiences.
Absolutely.
And they may not just be people who lash out at the first sign of injustice. There will be people who will silently imbibe the experience and then maybe consciously or unconsciously make some choices about how they should act.
Okay.
Which again tells me about something I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Regarding, because we've been talking about women throughout, but we should also talk about men, since, you know, feminism should be discussed in relation to men as well.
Absolutely.
Most of your protagonists in Unfettered Wings, and Unfettered Wings is a short story collection. I think there are 10 stories in there.
Yeah.
Most of your protagonists are facing some form of adversity or injustice because men put them through it.
Yeah.
Would you like to comment on that? Maybe the relationship of men.
Well, I suppose you've read the book, yeah? Yeah.
In your side.
All right. Yeah. The stories. Okay. The first thing that I need to clarify here is what I understand about feminism is that there is no one universal truth about being a woman. Not one size fits all. Having understood that, the same theory applies to men. If in these 10 stories I have put women in certain situations in which they have to prove themselves, or they have to emerge stronger, or as I like to put it, be their own hero and not wait for some man to be, you know, the rescuer of a damsel in distress. I don't play by that narrative. But at the same time, I've also tried to create a balance by showing how a lack of support from individual members of the society, irrespective of their gender, be they men or women, if they are lacking in giving out support to a woman in trouble, or a certain situation that is particularly assigned to a woman because of her gender, like rape or honor killing or domestic abuse. You're not going to listen to stories about grown women or husbands, you know, put into these situations, but women are. So if women around them are not going to pitch in their support, or even at least a voice, then that equals to strengthening a status quoist patriarchy / misogyny. So until and unless men and women are together, like, I have not portrayed men necessarily in a negative light, and I don't want to do that. But similarly, all women are also not, supportive of or helpful for a woman in distress in the stories. So I think there's a counterbalance.
Indeed, there is.
And since you have stressed upon the fact that we are talking about women and stressing about womanhood, I am really curious to know what has given you an understanding of the female mind, because you, being a man, it's difficult. I've read write about women, but you have an in-depth understanding of. So has that been observation or experience, or maybe out of reading?
So I was very conscious of the fact that I was writing from a first person's perspective, and that to a woman's perspective. And I've been told repeatedly that men who tend to write about women focus on this area and this area alone. And I was very, very conscious of that. I did not want to do that at all. And I don't think Tanya mentions her breasts at any point in time. And to get back to your question about whether it was experience, observation, or the
studying, reading.
I think it's an amalgam of the three. I tried writing in the third person narrative. That did not work out because that was undermining Tanya's experience. However, I felt that I needed opinions on this. I needed people to give me feedback. So I approached a lot of my colleagues, and much of them thought that they were the inspiration or the muse for Tanya. I told them very, very categorically, no, that's not it. It's an amalgam of those things. And I think I used to work in the newspaper business for about 5 years, and I engaged with a lot of journalists, female journalists, who were different, who were funny, who were exciting in their own way, who had a lot of stories, a lot of inputs about life in a city as chaotic as Karachi, maybe even miserable. So I think it was an amalgam of all of that. Earlier you mentioned something which I feel we should be drawing upon. You mentioned that you don't victimize your
Yeah.
heroines or your
Yeah.
female protagonists. Instead, they come across, and they've been described in many reviews of Unfettered Wings as symbols of female fortitude.
Yeah.
Do you think we as writers have a responsibility to ensure that women are not presented in a victimized way?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a duty. If you want to commit to build a constructive and productive narrative, that is totally going to be your choice. But as a writer, I feel that other than a literary pursuit, a book, especially when we are writing in a contemporary age where everything is more related to realism, and in realism not only characters and emotions and pathos and ethos are the ones that are counted, but also the political situation, the social situation, the cultural influences, they all have to be explored independently. And when you as a writer are putting out a book, out into the world, you're throwing it to the winds so that the readers can read it and derive their own meanings out of it, I think you bear a very heavy responsibility. Then you are responsible for not only building a narrative in literature, but also responsible for creating or building a narrative around which the readers are going to construct their own social realities. If a reader is going to find exactly the same problems without a solution or without a hope or without an optimism or without some fight and prowess and powerfulness in the character, then what are they going to derive of the book? That is going to strengthen the status quo. That is going to strengthen the misogyny or patriarchy or whatever that a feminist writer wants to or yearns to address. As a feminist writer, both of us, I think we're going to agree on that, that we are responsible for narrative building. So we just can't have a literary pursuit, we have a cause, I think.
We have a sense of responsibility
as well.
as well.
Exactly. And Taha, would you mind telling us, has writing typically, Tanya, help you in any way to learn more about yourself as a man and also as a writer?
So I've been told that I write women well and men very poorly. That's a lesson I've been told. I didn't think I wrote men poorly, but okay. I guess it made me aware of the things that maybe I would not have been able to talk about as openly.
Okay.
Largely it has to do with the fact that the feedback was it was great actually,
yeah,
because
it was.
people
I read the reviews. Yeah.
My own editor thought I was a woman, and it was only later, I think I was taken on by my editor because she's like, okay, there's a man writing it, this is different.
Okay.
Otherwise she thought it was some woman sitting in Karachi talking about taking Kareems, going to her office, meeting colleagues, meeting friends. I said, okay, this is a man telling the story. So I think that was very revealing for me, because I didn't think that my male privilege would get me this far as well. But yeah, I think as we talk about men, I wanted to ask you this, and this has been on my mind for a very long time.
Yeah.
If a man had written this book, would it be different? And you can feel free to ask me the exact reverse for my book.
Well,
how different would it be? Or how similar would it be, perhaps?
You see, Taha, I'm not into generalizations, seriously. I don't think I can just sit here and say that no, a man would not have been able to write this book. But I think writing about women involves a certain sensitivity, which you have displayed, yes? And like men could attempt, I think, if they are interested enough to read or write about stories, women, stories of women, then of course they could do that. But I think that the emotional level involved, plus the pathos, which is understanding someone's character or someone's story through sympathy and emotions, the ethos, the situation, the circumstances, which are very individualistic, and you cannot apply generalizations to them. You have to be able to understand the ethos of a character or a story. Like I said before, there is no universal truth about being a woman. And then there is the topos or the kairos, and that is the timeliness, the topicality. How are you going to choose to tell the story of a woman? Is it going to be pity invoking? Are you going to arouse sympathy in the reader's mind? Or are you going to tell the reader that the women are very powerful individuals, or they have strength, even if they are in a very, maybe in a pitiable situation, they still have the prowess, they still have the stoicism, and they still have the spine to stand for themselves, and maybe they are lacking in a certain voice, but that voice, once they find it, they can certainly make a difference for themselves.
I guess that boils down to the question of whether you're writing about women or you're writing from the perspective of women.
Yeah, or maybe
And
if you're
that
writing
there's
for
a
women
fine-
as well.
There's a
you
fine
know?
line between
So would you-
those two and the thing you mentioned there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Taha, there is one question. First, do you want to, I'm going to take your offer and reverse the question to you again. So do you
Okay.
think if typically Tanya had been written by a woman, it would have been different, and how different would it have been? In which areas?
Maybe the female author would have been more comfortable with the third person narrative. Because I know if I was writing a man's character, I would much rather not put my male ego in the middle.
Okay.
So I would take a back seat and maybe write it as a third person. And this is all based on my own assumption. Maybe a woman would write this in first person in a much better way. And I guess it is very suspicious that a man has chosen to write about a woman, and
Yeah, but I was just going to say
there
this.
is bound to be skepticism.
No,
And
skepticism apart. I mean, do you think if a woman had written typically Tanya, it would have the same appeal? Because right now, the main appeal for me as a reader is that Taha Kehar has written typically Tanya.
Actually, many women have objected to the fact too, so I'm not going to say anything. I guess it depends on what you're comfortable with. And maybe I may have misinterpreted certain situations, and that's all right. I admit to all failings. But at the end of the day, maybe a woman would have been more comfortable with a third person narrative. At least
right.
that's my assumption.
All right, thank you. Taha, one last question. Before we go on to the question and answer session, that is,
Understand,
we have 7 minutes. I think
All right.
we can make up for the lost time.
Excellent.
Could we? We could, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is that your future works, do they involve the same kind of line? Are you going to take the same female protagonist? I mean, different female protagonists, but are you going to write about women again?
So the assumption was that I would take Tanya further, write a sequel.
Oh, okay.
I'm not interested in doing that right now.
Oh, okay.
Simply because I want to distance myself from it. I'm working on a Karachi narrative in the third person, not the first person. So it's less conversational than this novel there. I will be exploring similar themes, maybe taking them further, like the politics of Karachi, which will weaved into this almost casually as mentions, as opposed to with intricate plot lines. I would like to explore that in the next book, and yeah.
All right. Sigmund Freud, I think most of us are familiar with his name. He's a psychologist that I've been studying at college, and he's one of my very favorite ones when especially comes down to studying theories of psychoanalysis and women. So there's a question that he has left unanswered, and that is, what do women want? Have you been able to answer that question?
I don't think so. I don't think I'm in a position to comment on that. What do women want, Tanya?
Well, I think, well, to me, as a woman, what I want, I think I want three things. I want respect.
True.
I want acceptance for who I am and for my decisions. I think all the women are going to agree with that. And the third thing I want is justice. And all three of these things should not be based or prejudiced or biased because of my gender. That's, I think, that's what I want.
As writers, we should be able to depict all these ingredients in our work.
Yeah, we should. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, can we
I guess
open
we can
the house?
open it up for...
Yeah, please feel to ask questions. Okay, that guy in the black shirt and this lady. Yeah. The black shirt, he's got his hand up. Oh, okay.
Ma'am, thank you very much for your fruitful discussion at SAR2. I just want to ask a question. Is there any conflict within the writer while writing having two concepts in mind. One is the spontaneity of idea, and the other are the social constraints and personal liking or disliking. Is there any conflict within the writer? And if it is, then how it is avoided?
Do you want to answer that?
You can go ahead and then I can
Could you,
just-
I'm sorry, could you rephrase that question? I don't understand the conflict part. I understand that you're talking about something conflicting within a writer.
Is
What
this
are
a conflict between the
between two
spontaneity?
things? Could you just tell us? Which two things are you talking about?
Yes, the conflict within the conflict in the process of creativity.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
having
And?
two forces. One is the spontaneity of idea,
Okay.
and the second is the social construction or social constraints.
Restrictions.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I don't think, as a writer, I believe in social constraints. I have never let anything stop me from writing or saying whatever I have tried to say, and I don't. I might reflect on picking my words, but I don't reflect again on picking an idea that has struck to me, and I want to write about it. Taha, please.
I guess with the spontaneity of an idea, you should have the will to take it further,
Yeah.
even if it takes you towards, a juncture where you're met with all these constraints. And there's a way of overcoming those constraints, maybe like choosing the right words,
Yeah.
or presenting it in a way that is nuanced enough, even though it's not direct.
Yeah, seriously, you
Because
have to fictionalize things.
Some of the most beautiful literature that comes out has a less overt approach to issues that surround us.
Yeah, correct. Agreed. The lady, please. The lady in pink. This one, in the front row.
Right up front.
Hi, congratulations for getting your books published. If
Thank
I could
you.
also I wanted to be slightly more organic, so if you could both read like your best 3 lines from the book, and also if you could share your publishing journey.
All right.
All right, start with the publishing journey. If we
Yes.
have time, then I think we'll go ahead. All right, thank you. Publishing
Would you
journey.
like to go first? I think.
I should go first?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take-
My publishing journey started in 2015. I had written a novel by the name of The Satanist. I think this is where it is.
right, yeah.
And I was inexperienced. I was writing out of home. So I didn't really know the difference between traditional publishing and self-publishing. I mean, I knew the difference, the basicalities, but I didn't really understand how it would affect the marketing, the distribution, and the readership if I got my novel self-published. So I had it, but it didn't really give me the recognition that I was looking for. And then in 2018, I had a collection of short stories come out. That's from Rupa. It was published in India, and it's met with good success. I'm very happy with it. It's gotten 4 5-star reviews. It's been part of the Sonali Bendre book club. It's been a very good journey. I think it's made good sales here in Pakistan as well. So I think if by publishing journey, you're trying to understand what is the better way to get published, I think I would always suggest traditional. Taha.
Publishing is very different from writing a book,
Yeah.
and not many of us are told that. Very few of us are lucky enough to have 6-figure advances right at the beginning of our careers, and publishers who are desperate to publish our work.
Yeah.
I think it's important to realize that, and it took me some time to realize that I needed an agent. A literary agent is fundamental. We won't find them very much in Pakistan, but it's important to approach people who can actually speak for your work. The other thing is that I did not have an agent for my first novel of Rift and
Yeah, same
Rivalry
here.
right over here. It's a partition story, and I believe all of us Pakistani authors have a partition story in us, and I was fortunate to have my own partition novel taken on, but it was purely a stroke of luck. And with Tanya, because I was able to get an agent on board, it was a lot more lucrative, not just financially, but in terms of the experience and the exposure that a writer needs, because you just need readers at the end of the day. So if you're looking to write and get published, look for an agent.
Right. So, more questions, please? Do we have?
Time. Could we just take up one more question, ideally?
Yeah, one more question, please.
Right at the
Yes,
back.
please, the gentleman.
And both of them, right?
I happen to be a Norwegian, And I just thought about this thing. It doesn't really matter who the writer is of a good story, if it's a man or a woman. And as you know, up to the, I don't know, 1880s or something, women published
Under men's name.
under men's name.
Yeah.
And for example, Karen Blixen, her first book was published under the name of Isaac Dinesen.
Yeah.
And what is it? Rawlings.
Yeah.
She published only with initials.
Yes.
And adults write children's stories
Yeah.
when we are adults, and so on.
Yes.
So, but it's the story that is the important thing, of course.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
it is interesting that men write in I form about a woman, and women, of course, could do that about men's stories. But it is interesting, and maybe it's fun, and it is challenging, and there are other things to it. But today we should also discuss it, but maybe separate from the story, because the story is important in itself.
All right, thank you. I think that was a comment. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could we just take that one question and then?
Yes, please. Please go ahead.
We could just wrap it up very quickly
Yeah.
then.
I just want to ask a very simple question. That what made you actually write? You know, as a writer, some people have some thoughts in their minds and they want to express themselves. But what actually led you to write?
Okay, who is the question directed to? Both of us or one of us? Taha?
Both of you.
Oh, both of us. Taha, you want to go first?
I think we all write because there is a deep-seated insecurity about something, a sense of a personal injustice maybe, or we notice something around us that we're not comfortable with and we'd like to give some kind of exposition to it, try to find meaning within it, and I think that's why I do it.
All right, for me it's simple that to me writing a book means having a story inside me which is bursting to come out. This book, especially Unfettered Wings, and even the novel, The Satanist, these were stories that I would have read had they been written before, and I would have cherished the book like I have always cherished books. But since I couldn't find that story anywhere, or maybe I missed some, I had to write that book, and I wrote these books. I feel a responsibility that women or men who have a voice and who can be the voice for other people, they should make their voice heard, because that's the constructive process, and that's how writing becomes more than, again, a literary pursuit and becomes more constructive and more productive. Thank you very much. I think we have to leave now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for
this
being here. It's been
lovely
very
session.
enjoyable.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.